What if I told you that the woman you threw away like trash was carrying 3 lives inside her, each one with your blood running through their veins? The rain hammered against the windows of the small clinic in Lagos as Amina Hassan sat trembling on the examination table. Her hands clutched the edges of the paper gown, knuckles white from gripping too hard. The doctor, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair, looked up from the ultrasound monitor with an expression Amina couldn't quite read. "Miss Hassan," the doctor said softly, "I need you to look at this screen." Amina's eyes followed reluctantly, blurred shapes swimming in black and white pixels. "What am I looking at?" "3 heartbeats," the doctor replied. "You're carrying triplets. 11 weeks along. All 3 appear healthy." The world tilted. Amina's breath caught in her throat. 3? That's impossible. The doctor smiled gently. "It's rare, but very possible." "Congratulations." But Amina wasn't hearing congratulations. All she could hear was the echo of Chaik's sister's voice from 3 weeks ago at the memorial service. "Your lover is gone, swept away, just like the rest of his foolish dreams. You were nothing but a distraction. Now move on with your life." Chaik Okafor. The name still burned in her chest like hot coals. The tech billionaire who'd swept into her village of Ibusa during a rural connectivity project. He'd come with engineers and blueprints, and left with her heart tangled in promises he swore he'd keep. They'd met at her grandmother's tailor shop where Amina stitched traditional garments for ceremonies and weddings. Chaik had wandered in one afternoon, looking for a replacement button on his shirt. She'd sewn it back on while he told her about his vision to bring internet access to every remote village in Nigeria. His eyes had lit up when he spoke. She'd never met anyone who burned that bright. 6 months later, they were inseparable. He'd return every weekend, trading the glass towers of Lagos for dusty roads and her grandmother's cooking. He taught her about technology. She taught him about patience and roots. One night under the stars, he'd promised her forever. "I'll build you a house," he'd said. "Right here in Ibusa. We'll raise our children where the air is clean and the sky is wide." Then the plane crash happened. Private jet going down over the Atlantic. No survivors. Body never recovered. Victoria Okafor, Chaik's older sister and the vice president of his company, had held a memorial service so grand it made international news. Amina had shown up in a simple black dress, carrying nothing but grief. Security wouldn't let her past the gates. "You're not on the list," they'd said. "This is family only." She'd stood outside in the rain, watching through iron bars as dignitaries and politicians paid their respects to a man she'd loved in ways they'd never understand. Now sitting in this clinic, staring at 3 tiny heartbeats on a screen, Amina felt the full weight of her isolation. Chaik was gone. His family had erased her. And she was carrying 3 children who would never know their father. "How much will the care cost?" Amina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor handed her a printed estimate. Amina's stomach dropped. The number was more than she made in 6 months of sewing. "I can refer you to public services," the doctor offered gently. "There are programs." Amina nodded, folding the paper carefully. She walked out of the clinic into the wet Lagos streets, the rain soaking through her headscarf. Okada drivers shouted for passengers. Street vendors hawked roasted plantains. Life moved around her like she wasn't even there. She placed a hand on her still flat stomach and whispered, "I don't know how, but I'll keep you safe. All 3 of you." 7 years. That's how long it took for Amina to build a life out of dust and determination. She'd returned to Ibusa with her triplets, 3 beautiful children she named Zainab, Yusuf, and Amara. The village whispered behind her back at first. Unmarried mother. Abandoned woman. Foolish girl who loved above her station. But Amina's hands were faster than their gossip. She sewed wedding dresses that made brides cry. She stitched traditional attire so intricate that families traveled from neighboring states to commission her work. Her grandmother's small shop became Amina's Afrit couture, and slowly, respect replaced the whispers. But money was always tight. 3 growing children meant 3 school uniforms, 3 sets of textbooks, 3 mouths that never seemed full no matter how much jollof rice she stretched. Zainab, the eldest by 4 minutes, had her father's sharp mind. She devoured books the way other children devoured candy. Yusuf, quieter, had Chike's eyes, soft brown with flecks of gold that caught the light when he laughed. And little Amara, fierce and protective, had somehow inherited both her mother's stubbornness and her father's charm. They asked about their father sometimes. "Where is he, Mama?" Zainab would say, her voice careful, like she knew the answer would hurt. "He's watching over you," Amina would reply, which wasn't a lie but wasn't quite the truth either. She'd never told them about Chike Okafor. Never mentioned his name or his empire. What good would it do? The man was gone, and his family had made it clear she didn't exist. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. Amina was working late in her shop, hand-beating a coral blouse for a client's engagement ceremony, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Miss Hassan?" A woman's voice asked, crisp and professional. "This is Adiz Mosu from the Okafor Foundation. We're reaching out regarding survivor benefits for children of company executives who passed away. Your name came up in our records." Amina's needle slipped, pricking her finger. Blood welled up, a small red dot on white fabric. "What records? There must be some mistake." "No mistake," the woman continued. "Chike Okafor listed you as an emergency contact in his personal files. We're obligated to verify any potential dependents. If your children are his, they're entitled to educational trusts and health coverage. We'll need DNA verification, of course." Amina's heart hammered. "Why now? After 7 years?" "Policy review," the woman said smoothly. "We're updating all beneficiary records. There's a charity gala next month in Lagos. The foundation hosts it annually. We'd like you to attend so we can discuss the details in person. Your travel and accommodation will be covered." Amina looked around her small shop. The sewing machines her grandmother had left her. The fabric bolts stacked against cracked walls. The children's school photos pinned above her workstation. This could change everything. "I'll be there," she said. The gala was held at the Eco Hotel and Suites, one of Lagos's most prestigious venues. Amina borrowed a dress from a client, emerald green lace with gold threading she'd sewn herself months ago. She borrowed shoes that pinched her toes. She borrowed confidence she didn't quite feel. When she arrived, the contrast was immediate. Women dripped in diamonds. Men wore watches worth more than her annual income. Waiters glided through the crowd with trays of champagne and canapes that looked like tiny works of art. Amina clutched her small purse, feeling every stitch of borrowed fabric against her skin. She found Adiz Mosu near the registration table, a tall woman in a sleek navy pantsuit. "Miss Hassan," Adiz greeted her with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Welcome. Let me introduce you to some of the foundation board members." They moved through the crowd, and Amina felt eyes following her. Curious. Judgmental. She held her head high, remembering her grandmother's words. A queen doesn't apologize for taking up space. Then she saw Victoria Okafor. Chike's sister stood at the center of the ballroom, holding court like royalty. She wore red, the color of blood and power, her jewelry catching every light in the room. When her eyes landed on Amina, recognition flickered, then hardened into something cold. Well, Victoria said, her voice carrying across the conversation circle. "The village seamstress. I didn't realize we were inviting charity cases tonight." Amina's spine stiffened. "Miss Okafor, I was invited by your foundation to discuss my children." Victoria's laugh was sharp. "Your children? You mean the ones you claim are my brothers?" The conversations around them died. Heads turned. Phones came out. Amina felt the heat of 100 stares. "They are his children. I have proof." "Proof?" Victoria stepped closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. Let me guess. You've been waiting 7 years to come crawling back with some convenient story now that his estate is settled. How much do you want? This isn't about money. Amina's voice shook, but she didn't back down. It's about my children knowing their father's legacy. Your children's father could be anyone. Victoria's voice dripped venom. My brother had taste. He would never have touched someone like you. Someone like me? Village trash, Victoria hissed. A nobody trying to claw her way into wealth she didn't earn. Did you think showing up here in a borrowed dress would make you belong? Every word was a blade. Amina felt them cutting, felt the room tilting as laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered loud enough for her to hear. Gold digger. Another voice. Shameless. Amina's hands trembled. She opened her purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside were 3 photographs, Zainab, Yusuf, and Amara, taken just last week. Their faces bright with life. She held them out toward Victoria. Look at them. Look at their eyes. Tell me you don't see him. Victoria glanced at the photos, and for a split second, something flickered across her face. Fear? Recognition? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. I see 3 children who deserve better than a mother who lies for money. Security, please escort Miss Hassan out. She's disturbing our guests. 2 guards appeared at Amina's sides. One reached for her arm. She pulled back, her voice rising. I have every right to be here. Your foundation contacted me. Then there's been a mistake, Adiz said smoothly, stepping forward. We'll be in touch through proper legal channels. For now, please leave quietly. Amina looked around the ballroom. Every face was turned toward her. Judgment. Pity. Contempt. No one spoke up. No one defended her. The guards took her arms, firmer this time, and guided her toward the exit. Her borrowed shoes clicked against marble floors that cost more than her entire shop. As they pushed through the glass doors into the humid Lagos night, she heard Victoria's voice carry behind her. Now, where were we? Let's not let unpleasantness ruin a lovely evening. Laughter followed. The doors closed. And Amina stood alone on the steps of the Eco Hotel, humiliation burning through her like fever. But then she felt it. The anger. Hot and clean and sharpening into something stronger than shame. She pulled out her phone and took a photo of the hotel's glowing facade. Then she posted it with a caption. They threw me out for claiming my children's father. But truth doesn't need permission to exist. Within an hour, the post had been shared 2,000 times. By morning, it would be everywhere. The village seamstress wasn't going to disappear quietly. Not this time. Amina's viral post ignited something she hadn't expected. The internet, that sprawling beast of opinions and outrage, latched onto her story with ferocious speed. By dawn, hashtags were trending. Justice for Amina. Okafor Foundation exposed. Someone had recorded the confrontation at the gala. The video was shaky, shot from across the ballroom, but the audio was clear enough. Victoria's cruel words. The crowd's laughter. Amina's trembling hands holding up photos of her children. The comments section became a battlefield. Half the internet called her a fraud. Gold digger. Liar. Opportunist trying to profit off a dead man's name. But the other half saw something different. They saw a mother defending her children. A woman humiliated by the wealthy and powerful. Every share added fuel to the fire. News outlets picked it up. Nigerian blogger Linda Ikeji wrote a think piece titled, When Wealth Silences Truth, Who Speaks for the Children? Breakfast show hosts debated it over coffee and croissants. Was Amina Hassan a victim or a scam artist? The nation was divided. But while the internet argued, Amina's real life continued. She returned to Abuja the next morning, exhausted and humiliated, to find her children waiting at the door of their small house. Mama, you're home. Amara threw herself into her mother's arms. Zainab stood back, studying her mother's face with eyes too wise for 7 years old. What happened in Lagos? Nothing important, Amina lied, smoothing her daughter's braided hair. Just boring grown-up business. Yusuf tugged her hand. Did you bring us anything? Amina's heart cracked. She'd promised them small gifts, but she'd left the gala so quickly she'd forgotten everything except her shame. Next time, she said, kissing his forehead. I promise. Her neighbor, Mama Ngozi, appeared at the doorway, arms crossed over her ample chest. I saw the video, she said bluntly. The whole village saw it. Amina stiffened. And people are talking. Saying you're chasing money that isn't yours. Saying you're bringing shame to Abusa. Mama Ngozi's expression softened. But I told them, Amina Hassan doesn't lie. If she says those children are Cheikh Okafor's, then they are. The validation, small as it was, made Amina's eyes sting. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Mama Ngozi warned. Victoria Okafor is powerful. You're picking a fight with a lioness. What choice do I have? Amina asked. My children deserve to know their father's name. Even if it destroys you in the process? Amina looked through the doorway at her triplets, now playing a game with bottle caps on the floor, their laughter bright and uncomplicated. Especially then. 2 days later, a black SUV with tinted windows rolled into Abusa. Village children scattered, running alongside it like it was a parade. Luxury cars were rare here, usually belonging to chiefs or politicians. The SUV stopped outside Amina's shop. A man in a dark suit stepped out, holding a leather briefcase. He was young, maybe early 30s, with the polished look of someone who spent more time in boardrooms than dirt roads. Are you Amina Hassan? He asked. Depends who's asking. He handed her a business card. Emeka Obi, legal counsel for Okafor Enterprises. I'm here on behalf of Victoria Okafor. Amina's jaw tightened. She already threw me out once. What else could she possibly want? He opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick document. This is a cease and desist order. You're to stop making public claims about Cheikh Okafor. Stop using his name. Delete your social media posts. And you're forbidden from contacting any member of the Okafor family or their business associates. Amina scanned the document, her hands shaking with rage. And if I don't? Then Miss Okafor will pursue legal action for defamation and harassment. She's prepared to file criminal charges if necessary. You'll face fines you can't afford, possibly jail time. Her eyes snapped up. She's threatening me? I'm informing you of the consequences of your actions. He pulled out another paper. However, Miss Okafor is willing to offer you an alternative. She's prepared to pay you 2 million naira to sign a non-disclosure agreement. You'll agree that Cheikh Okafor is not the father of your children, you'll retract your public statements, and you'll never mention the Okafor name again. 2 million naira. It was more money than Amina had ever seen in her life. Enough to expand her business. Send her children to private schools. Build a real house instead of this aging structure with its leaking roof and cracked walls. But it would also be a lie. She looked at Emeka Obi's expensive suit and his practiced neutrality. How much is she paying you to come here and bribe me? He didn't flinch. I'm doing my job. And I'm doing mine. Protecting my children. She handed back the papers without signing anything. Tell Victoria Okafor that my children's truth isn't for sale. His expression finally shifted, something like respect flickering across his features. Miss Hassan, I'll be honest with you. Victoria has resources you can't imagine. She will bury you in legal fees. She will make your life hell. Why are you warning me? Because, he said quietly, I looked into your story. And I looked into Cheikh's personal files. The ones Victoria doesn't know exist. His gaze held hers. You might want to talk to Dr. Adeyemi at Lagos Central Hospital. He was Chike's personal physician. Before Amina could respond, Emeka climbed back into the SUV. It rolled away, leaving dust and questions in its wake. That evening, Amina made a decision. She couldn't afford a lawyer. Couldn't fight Victoria's money or power. But she could fight with the truth. She called the one person she knew who might help. Auntie Folake, a journalist from Vanguard newspaper who'd grown up in Ibusa before moving to Lagos decades ago. Folake answered on the third ring. Amina? I saw your post. Girl, you've stirred up a hornet's nest. I need your help, Amina said. I need someone to tell my story properly. Not the internet's version. Mine. There was a pause. Then Folake said, come to Lagos. Bring your children. And bring any proof you have. Everything. The next morning, Amina packed a small bag. She withdrew the last of her savings from the village cooperative. 3,000 naira. Barely enough for bus fare and a few nights in a budget hotel. She dressed the triplets in their best clothes, the ones she'd sewn from leftover fabric scraps. Then she locked up her shop, told Mama Ngozi where she was going, and boarded the bus to Lagos with 3 sleepy children and a heart full of terrified hope. The journey took 6 hours through red clay roads and crowded highways. The children slept against her, their warm weight grounding her. She watched the landscape change from rural green to urban concrete and thought about Chike. 7 years ago, he'd made this same journey in reverse. Coming to find her. Coming to love her. If he could see her now, fighting for their children, would he be proud? The bus dropped them at Ojota Motor Park. The chaos was immediate. Touts shouting. Danfo buses honking. The smell of roasted corn and exhaust fumes mixing in the thick Lagos air. Amina held Zainab's hand, who held Yusuf's, who held Amara's. They moved through the crowd like a small train, destination uncertain but direction clear. Forward. Always forward. Auntie Folake met them at a small hotel in Yaba. She was a sturdy woman in her 50s with gray locks and the sharp eyes of someone who'd spent decades separating truth from lies. She hugged Amina, then crouched down to the children's level. You 3 must be tired. Let's get you some food first. Business can wait. Over plates of jollof rice and chicken, Folake listened to Amina's story. All of it. The 6 months with Chike. The promises. The crash. The memorial she wasn't allowed to attend. The pregnancy. The 7 years of silence. The gala. The viral video. The cease and desist. When Amina finished, Folake sat back, her expression thoughtful. You know what bothers me most about this story? What? Victoria's reaction. If your children really weren't Chike's, why wouldn't she just agree to a DNA test? Why threaten you? Why try to pay you off? That's what I keep thinking, Amina admitted. What is she hiding? That's what we're going to find out. Folake pulled out her laptop. Tomorrow, we're going to Lagos Central Hospital to find this Dr. Adeyemi. And we're going to start building your case properly. Because this isn't just about your children anymore. This is about power, lies, and what happens when the wealthy think they can erase people. That night, as her children slept in the narrow hotel bed, Amina stood by the window looking out at the glittering chaos of Lagos. Somewhere in this city, Victoria Okafor was sleeping in luxury, confident that her money and influence would crush a village seamstress. But Victoria had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated a mother's love. And that, Amina thought as she touched the window glass, was going to be her downfall. The morning came with the aggressive sounds of Lagos waking up. Generators rumbling. Street hawkers calling out. The triplets woke confused and used to the noise, but Amina distracted them with promises of adventure. Auntie Folake arrived early with breakfast, warm puff and akara wrapped in brown paper. We need to move carefully today, she explained while the children ate. Dr. Adeyemi still works at Lagos Central, but I called ahead. He's nervous about talking. We'll need to convince him. What if he won't help? Amina asked. Then we find another way. Folake's voice was steel wrapped in warmth. Truth has a way of surfacing, even when people try to drown it. They left the children with Folake's cousin, a kind woman who ran a daycare in Suralere. Zainab looked uncertain. You're coming back, right, Mama? Of course, Amina promised, kissing her forehead. Before dinner. I swear it. Lagos Central Hospital was massive, a maze of buildings and courtyards where hope and grief collided daily. They found Dr. Adeyemi in his office on the 4th floor, a small man with graying hair and tired eyes. When Folake introduced Amina, his expression shuddered immediately. I can't discuss patient information, he said before they'd even sat down. It's confidential. Even when the patient is gone? Folake pressed. Especially then. Dr. Adeyemi turned to his computer, dismissing them. I have rounds. But Amina didn't move. She reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. Just look, she said quietly. Please. He glanced at the picture, 3 children smiling at the camera, and his hands stilled on the keyboard. Those eyes, he whispered. You see it too, Amina said. Don't you? Dr. Adeyemi was silent for a long moment. Then he closed his office door and sat down heavily. What do you want from me? The truth, Amina said. Whatever you know about Chike's death. Why Victoria is so desperate to keep my children away from his legacy. The doctor's jaw worked. What I'm about to tell you could cost me my career. Then why tell us? Folake asked. Because, Dr. Adeyemi said, looking directly at Amina, Chike Okafor isn't gone. Amina's world tilted. The office walls seemed to close in. Her voice came out strangled. What did you say? He's alive. Barely, but alive. He's been in a private medical facility for 7 years. Victoria has kept him there, hidden from everyone. The room spun. Amina gripped the edge of the desk. That's impossible. The crash. The memorial. I treated him after the crash, Dr. Adeyemi continued, his voice low and urgent. Severe head trauma. Broken bones. 3rd-degree burns on 40% of his body. He was in a coma for 8 months. When he woke up, he had complete amnesia. Didn't remember his name, his company, his life. Nothing. Folake leaned forward. And Victoria used that to take over everything. More than that. Victoria told everyone he was gone. Held a memorial. Dissolved his personal accounts. Restructured the company with herself as CEO. She kept Chike locked away in a facility in Lekki, telling the staff he was a distant relative with mental health issues. No visitors. No outside contact. She's been in control of everything for 7 years. Why are you telling us this now? Amina's voice shook. Because 3 months ago, Chike's memory started coming back. Fragments at first. Then more. He's been asking about you. He remembers your name. Amina's breath caught. He remembers me? He's been drawing pictures of a woman with a yellow headscarf. That's how he describes you. Victoria doesn't know yet, but when she finds out, she'll move him somewhere I can't reach. Or worse. Amina stood abruptly, the chair scraping against linoleum. I need to see him. Where is he? Lekki Specialist Care Center. It's a private facility on Admiralty Way. But security is tight. You can't just walk in. Then we'll find a way, Amina said fiercely. 7 years. He's been alive for 7 years and she let me believe he was gone. She let our children grow up without him. Dr. Adeyemi wrote an address on a piece of paper. There's a nurse there, Ngozi Ease. She's sympathetic to Chike's situation. Mention my name. She might help you. But be careful. Victoria has eyes everywhere. Folake folded the paper carefully. We need to document everything. If we're going up against Victoria Okafor, we need evidence that can't be disputed. Dr. Adeyemi reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a USB drive. Medical records. Admission documents. Everything proving Chike Okafor was admitted under a false name. I've been holding on to this, waiting for the right moment. He handed it to Amina. I think you're that moment. That afternoon, they returned to the hotel and huddled over Folake's laptop, examining the files. The records were damning. Admission under the name John Okonkwo. Bills paid from a private trust controlled by Victoria. Documentation showing sustained brain injury and memory loss. Transfer orders. Prescription records spanning 7 years. This is criminal, Folake breathed. Kidnapping. Fraud. Embezzlement. How has she gotten away with this for so long? Money buys silence, Amina said bitterly. And she had all of his. We need a plan, Folake said. If we go public now, Victoria will move him before we can prove anything. We need to get Amina to Chike first. Get confirmation. Maybe even get him out. How? Amina asked. I'm not a spy. I'm a seamstress. Then we'll use that, Folake said slowly, an idea forming. The facility has staff. They wear uniforms. What if you were delivering new uniforms? Pretending to be a vendor? That could actually work, Folake said. I'll call Ngozi, the nurse. Set it up for tomorrow evening. Shift change is at 6. Security is lighter then. Amina nodded, though fear coiled in her stomach. What if he doesn't remember me? What if seeing him makes it worse? Then at least you'll know, Folake said gently. At least your children will know. And Victoria won't be able to lie anymore. That night, Amina barely slept. She stared at the ceiling of the cheap hotel room, listening to her children breathe in the darkness beside her. Tomorrow, she'd see the man she'd mourned for 7 years. The father her children had never known. The love she'd buried in grief. Was he still the same man who'd promised her forever under the stars? Or had 7 years of captivity and amnesia changed him into someone she wouldn't recognize? Her hand found Zainab's sleeping form, then Yusuf's, then Amara's. Whatever happened tomorrow, she'd keep fighting. For them. Always for them. The next evening, Amina stood outside Lekki Specialist Care Center, wearing a borrowed uniform and carrying a large bag of fabric samples. Her hands shook as she approached the security gate. Good evening, she said to the guard, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm here to deliver uniform samples to Nurse Ngozi. She's expecting me. The guard checked his log, then waved her through. The facility was pristine, all white walls and sanitized surfaces. Soft music played from hidden speakers. It looked like a luxury hotel, not a prison. Nurse Ngozi met her in the lobby, a young woman with kind eyes and nervous energy. Dr. Adeyemi called me, she whispered. We don't have much time. His room is on the 3rd floor. I'll take you up during rounds. Follow my lead. They rode the elevator in tense silence. The 3rd floor was quiet, just the beeping of monitors and the soft footsteps of staff. Ngozi led her down a corridor to room 307. He's been agitated today, Ngozi warned. Talking about someone named Amina. That's me, Amina breathed. I know, Ngozi said. That's why I'm risking my job. She unlocked the door. You have 15 minutes. Then I have to get you out before the next check-in. Amina stepped inside. The room was large and comfortable, but undeniably a cell. No computer. No phone. Just medical equipment, a bed, and a man sitting by the window staring out at the Lagos skyline. He turned when he heard the door. Amina's breath stopped. 7 years had changed him. His face was scarred on one side, the burn marks Dr. Adeyemi had mentioned. His hair was longer, shot through with gray. But his eyes. Those soft brown eyes with flecks of gold were exactly as she remembered. He studied her with confusion. Do I know you? Her voice broke. It's me. Amina. His expression flickered. Recognition struggling against the fog of lost memory. Amina, he repeated slowly. Yellow headscarf. Ibusa. Grandmother's shop. Tears streamed down her face. Yes. Oh God, yes. Chike stood, unsteady, and took a hesitant step toward her. I've been dreaming about you. But they told me you weren't real. That I imagined you. I'm real, she said, closing the distance between them. I'm here. And so are your children. Our children. Children? His voice cracked. We have 3. Triplets. Zainab, Yusuf, and Amara. They're 7 years old. They have your eyes. She pulled out her phone, showing him photos. Chike stared at the screen, his hands trembling as he took the phone. His finger traced the faces of his children. I have children, he whispered. We have children. And Victoria knew. She knew everything. His head snapped up. Victoria? She told everyone you were gone. She kept you here. Took your company. Your life. Everything. The confusion in his eyes sharpened into something harder. I need to leave. I need to see them. We will, Amina promised. But we have to be smart. If Victoria finds out you remember, she'll move you somewhere we can't reach. The door opened. Ngozi stuck her head in, her face pale. Security is doing an unscheduled round. You need to leave now. Amina grabbed Chike's hand. I'll come back for you. I swear it. How will I know you're real? He asked desperately. What if I forget again? She pulled the yellow headscarf from her bag, the one she'd worn the day they met. Keep this. When you doubt, hold this and remember. Ibusa. Forever under the stars. He clutched the scarf like a lifeline. Forever under the stars, he repeated. Amina let Ngozi pull her toward the door, her heart shattering with every step. In the hallway, alarms began to sound. Code Yellow, room 307, a voice announced over the intercom. Patient distress. Ngozi's eyes went wide. They know. Run. Amina didn't need to be told twice. She bolted for the stairwell, taking steps 2 at a time. Behind her, she heard shouting. The heavy thud of security boots. She burst through the ground floor exit into the parking lot, sprinting toward the street where Folake waited in a borrowed car. Go, 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 Amina shouted, throwing herself into the passenger seat. Folake peeled out as security guards spilled from the building. They'd made it. Barely. But now Victoria would know someone had reached Chike. The war was about to begin in earnest. And Amina had just fired the first shot. The news hit Victoria Okafor's desk at 8 the next morning. An unauthorized visitor had accessed Chike's room. The patient had become agitated, asking about children and someone named Amina. Requesting to leave. Refusing medication. Victoria's manicured hand tightened around her morning coffee cup until her knuckles went white. Find out who breached security, she said coldly to her head of operations, Benga, who stood nervously before her. And move my brother immediately. Where to, Ma? The facility in Abuja. No visitors. No calls. Complete isolation until his memory resets. And if it doesn't reset? Then we'll help it alone. Increase his medications. Whatever it takes. Benga shifted uncomfortably. Miss Okafor, with all due respect, the medical ethics. I pay Dr. Oakley very well not to worry about ethics, Victoria interrupted. Just handle it. After he left, Victoria opened her laptop and pulled up the security footage from the facility. The video quality was grainy, but clear enough. A woman in a staff uniform. Slim build. head covered. But when she turned toward the camera in the hallway, Victoria's blood ran cold. Amina Hassan. That persistent village rat had found Chaik. Victoria's mind raced through scenarios, each more damaging than the last. If Amina got to the media with proof that Chaik was alive, every decision Victoria had made over the past 7 years would be scrutinized. The company restructuring. The dissolved trusts. The memorial insurance payout she'd collected. It wasn't just her reputation at stake. It was criminal prosecution. She picked up her phone and dialed her lawyer, Emeka Obi. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Amina Hassan got to my brother." "What? I thought you said she'd been scared off." "Clearly I was wrong. I need you to file an emergency injunction. Restraining order. Trespassing charges. Whatever it takes to keep her away from Chaik legally." "On what grounds?" "She broke into a private medical facility. That's criminal trespass. And harassment of a vulnerable patient." Emeka paused. "Victoria, if this goes to court, they'll want to know why Chaik's in that facility. Why he's been hidden. The truth will come out. Then we make sure it doesn't go to court. Offer her money again. More this time. 10 million naira. 20. Whatever it takes." "And if she still refuses?" Victoria's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Then we find another solution." That evening, Amina returned to the hotel to find a man waiting in the lobby. Tall, expensive suit, government bearing. He introduced himself as Director Musa Bakir from the Lagos State Child Welfare Services. "Miss Hassan," he said gravely, "I need to speak with you about your children." Amina's stomach dropped. "What about them?" "We've received a complaint. Allegations that you're exploiting minors for financial gain. Using them to make false claims against a prominent family." "That's a lie," Amina said hotly. "Who filed this complaint?" "The report is confidential." "But I'm required to investigate." "I'll need to interview your children and assess their living conditions." "They're fine," Amina protested. "They're happy and healthy. Nevertheless, until the investigation is complete, they'll need to be placed in temporary protective custody." "You can't take my children." Director Bakir pulled out official documents. "I can and I will if you don't cooperate. This is for their safety." Panic clawed at Amina's throat. This was Victoria's doing. She couldn't prove it, but she knew. Auntie Folake appeared from the hallway, her phone recording. "Director Bakir," she said loudly. "For the record, you're threatening to remove 3 children from a loving mother based on an anonymous accusation with no evidence. That's not proper procedure." Director Bakir's face reddened. "Ma'am, this is official business." "This is harassment," Folake countered. "And I'm a journalist. Whatever happens here is going on record. Would you like to explain to the public why child welfare is being used to intimidate a woman seeking justice for her children?" The director hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with being filmed. Then he handed Amina a card. "You have 48 hours to present your children for assessment. If you fail to comply, I'll return with police." After he left, Amina collapsed into a chair. "She's trying to take my children." "Not if we move first," Folake said grimly. "Tomorrow, we go public with everything. The medical records. Chaik's location. Victoria's lies. All of it." "But if we do that, Victoria will move him," Amina protested. "We'll lose access." "We already lost access. She's transferring him tonight. Dr. Adeyemi just texted me." "But if we release the story now, with his current location and proof he's alive, the media will descend on that facility before she can move him. Public pressure will force authorities to investigate. It's our only play." Amina thought of her children sleeping upstairs. Thought of Chaik clutching her yellow headscarf. Thought of 7 years of lies and stolen time. "Do it," she said. Tell the truth. All of it. Folake spent the night drafting the article. By dawn, it was ready. She sent it simultaneously to Vanguard, Punch, and Premium Times. She posted it on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The headline was simple but devastating. Hidden in plain sight, how Victoria Okafor faked her brother's death to steal his empire. The story detailed everything. The crash. The secret facility. The medical records. Chike's amnesia. His recovery. Amina's children. Victoria's threats. Within an hour, it was trending. Within 2 hours, news vans were parked outside Lekki Specialist Care Center. Within 3 hours, the police had arrived to investigate. Amina watched the chaos unfold on Folake's laptop, her heart in her throat. "This is really happening," she whispered. "No turning back now," Folake agreed. By noon, Victoria Okafor issued a statement through her lawyers denying all allegations and threatening legal action against everyone involved. But the damage was done. The Lagos State Police Commissioner announced a formal investigation into potential kidnapping and fraud. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission opened their own inquiry into Okafor Enterprises' finances. And most importantly, a judge issued an emergency order preventing Chike's transfer pending a full medical and legal review. That afternoon, Amina's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello? Miss Hassan?" A man's voice, shaky but clear. "This is Chike. They gave me a phone. The police are here. Victoria's being questioned. I remember everything now. Everything." Amina's breath caught. "The children. I want to meet them. Today. If you'll let me." Tears poured down her face. She looked at Zainab, Yusuf, and Amara playing cards on the hotel bed, oblivious to the storm swirling around them. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, come meet your children." 2 hours later, there was a knock on the hotel room door. Amina opened it to find Chike standing there, flanked by 2 police officers for protection. He looked exhausted, overwhelmed, but alive. So beautifully alive. The children looked up from their game. Zainab studied him with her careful intelligence. Yusuf's eyes went wide. Amara tilted her head. "Who are you?" Chike's voice broke. "I'm your father." The room fell silent. Then Zainab stood slowly. "You have Yusuf's eyes." Chike knelt down to their level. "And you have mine. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I wanted to be. They kept me away." "Why?" Amara asked. "Because some people value money more than love," Amina said gently. "But your father never stopped thinking about us. Even when he couldn't remember, his heart knew." Yusuf took a tentative step forward. "Will you leave again?" "Never," Chike promised. "I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost." Amara considered this, then walked up and took his scarred hand in her small one. "Okay," she said simply. "You can stay." Chike pulled all 3 children into his arms, tears streaming down his face. Amina stood back, her own tears falling, watching her family finally become whole. Outside the hotel room, the police waited. Reporters gathered. Lawyers prepared arguments. Victoria Okafor plotted her defense. But in that small room, for just a moment, none of it mattered. They had found each other. And that was everything. The trial of Victoria Okafor became the most watched legal proceeding in Nigerian history. News channels covered every moment. Social media dissected every testimony. And through it all, Amina sat in the courtroom gallery, her children beside her, watching justice slowly unfold. The evidence was overwhelming. Medical records proving Chike had been admitted under a false identity. Financial documents showing Victoria had diverted company funds. Testimony from Dr. Adeyemi, Nurse Ngozi, and a dozen other facility workers. The prosecution painted a picture of calculated cruelty. A sister who'd seen opportunity in her brother's tragedy and seized it without hesitation. Victoria's defense tried to claim she'd been protecting Chaik. That his amnesia had made him vulnerable. That she'd acted in his best interests. But when Chaik himself took the stand, that narrative crumbled. She told me I had no family, he testified, his voice steady despite the emotion. She told me I'd been alone my whole life. She showed me company documents and said I was a nobody who'd had a breakdown. Every day for 7 years, she erased me. Why do you think she did that? The prosecutor asked. Because I trusted her with everything before the crash. Power of attorney. Company access. She had the keys to my entire empire. And when I couldn't fight back, she took it all. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. But the truth was out, irrefutable and damning. When the prosecution called Amina to testify, she walked to the stand with her head high. She spoke about meeting Chaik in Ibiza. About their relationship. About the promises he'd made. About learning of his supposed death while pregnant. About 7 years of raising their children alone while Victoria enjoyed wealth built on lies. She told me I was nothing, Amina said, looking directly at Victoria. Called me village trash. Threw me out of a gala for daring to claim my children's father. But she was the one who stole. Not money. Time. She stole 7 years of my children knowing their father. 7 years of Chaik knowing he had a family who loved him. How did that make you feel? The prosecutor asked gently. Like I was invisible. Like our love meant nothing because we had no money to prove it. But love doesn't need wealth to be real. It just needs truth. And the truth was always on our side. The defense attorney tried to discredit her during cross-examination, suggesting she'd been after Chaik's money all along. But Amina's responses were calm and devastating. If I wanted money, she said, I would have accepted the 2 million naira Victoria offered me to stay quiet. I would have taken the 10 million she offered later. I refused both. Because you can't buy truth. And you can't erase love by pretending it never existed. When DNA results were officially entered into evidence confirming Zainab, Yusuf, and Amara were Chaik's children, the courtroom gasped. Victoria's lawyers had fought the testing, but the judge had ordered it. Now there was scientific proof of what Amina had claimed all along. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was packed. Media. Supporters. Curious onlookers. Victoria sat rigid at the defense table, her expensive suit armor against the coming judgment. On count 1, kidnapping and false imprisonment, how do you find? Guilty. On count 2, fraud and embezzlement, how do you find? Guilty. On count 3, forgery and identity theft, how do you find? Guilty. With each guilty verdict, Victoria's composure cracked a little more. By the time the judge sentenced her to 18 years in federal prison, she was shaking. Miss Okafor, the judge said sternly, you betrayed not just the law, but the most sacred trust. Family. You saw your brother's vulnerability and exploited it for personal gain. You attempted to erase his children's father and steal their inheritance. The sentence reflects the severity of your actions and serves as a warning. Wealth and power do not place anyone above justice. Victoria was led away in handcuffs. She didn't look at Chaik. Didn't look at Amina. Just stared straight ahead as if she could will herself into a different reality. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Miss Hassan, how do you feel about the verdict? Justice was served, Amina said simply. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been told they don't matter because they don't have money or status. The truth always matters. What's next for your family? We're going home to Ibiza, Chaik said, his arm around Amina's shoulders. I'm going to keep the promise I made 7 years ago. Build a house. Raise our children. Live the life we should have had all along. And the company? A reporter pressed. Okafor Enterprises? I'm restructuring everything, Chaik answered. Creating an ethical board. Establishing funds for rural technology access. The work I started before the crash. But this time, I'm doing it with my family beside me. Not alone. 6 months later, Amina stood in the doorway of a new house in Ibusa. It wasn't a mansion. Didn't need to be. But it had room for 3 growing children, a workshop for her sewing, and a wide porch where Chaik could sit and watch the stars. The village had changed its tune completely. The same people who'd whispered about her now called her a hero. The woman who'd fought wealth and won. The mother who'd never given up. But Amina didn't need their validation anymore. She'd found something more valuable than reputation. Peace. Chaik came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Happy? He asked. She leaned into him, watching their children play in the yard. Zainab was reading under a tree. Yusuf was building something complex with sticks. Amara was bossing them both around. Yes, she said. Finally. He kissed her temple. I'm sorry it took so long. Some journeys take 7 years, she said softly. But we made it. Together. In Lagos, in a small cell, Victoria Okafor sat alone. The empire she'd stolen was gone. The respect she'd craved had turned to infamy. And the family she'd betrayed had moved on without her. She'd gambled everything on the belief that money could rewrite truth. But she'd forgotten one critical lesson. Truth doesn't need wealth to survive. It just needs one person brave enough to speak it. And Amina Hassan, the village seamstress Victoria had once called nobody, had proven herself to be somebody unforgettable. The story ends not with revenge, but with restoration. A family reunited. Children who finally knew their father. A woman who'd fought an empire and won, not with power or money, but with the simple, devastating weapon of truth. Because in the end, love isn't measured by wealth. It's measured by the sacrifices we're willing to make when everything else is stripped away. And on that measure, Amina Hassan was the richest woman in the world. We hope this story reminded you that truth and love are more powerful than any empire built on lies. If this journey moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story like this one.